Well, good morning. Good to have you with us. I'm Joe Fryer.
And I'm Savannah Sellers. Thank you very much for starting your day with us. We are going to begin this morning with the fallout over the Trump Justice Department's criminal investigation of Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell.
More than a dozen former Fed chairs, Treasury secretaries, and leading economists signed a letter yesterday in support of the central bank's leader. Powell is facing a probe over testimony he gave before Congress last year on a multi-billion-dollar renovation of the Fed headquarters. Some Republicans are now slamming the inquiry, saying it could undermine the central bank's independence, while others in the party want to see the investigation play out. Powell maintains the whole thing is a politically motivated effort to pressure him into cutting interest rates, something the president has long sought over the past year. NBC News senior national political reporter Sahil Kapoor is standing by with reaction on Capitol Hill. First, though, let's go to NBC's Alice Barr. Alice, good morning.
Good morning, Joe. Worth noting, the Federal Reserve did lower interest rates 3 times in 2025, a move Chairman Powell says was motivated by economic conditions, not pressure from President Trump, who wants deeper rate cuts. And Powell argues that pressure is what's now behind the criminal probe. This morning, political pushback over the Justice Department's investigation into Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell, with a series of Republican lawmakers voicing concerns.
I know Chairman Powell very well. I will be stunned. I will be shocked if he has done anything wrong.
Chairman Powell himself announced the Federal Reserve had been subpoenaed, he says tied to his congressional testimony in June about costly pre-planned renovations to the Fed's headquarters in D.C. that shot from $1.9 to $2.5 billion, though not taxpayer money. President Trump has slammed the overruns, while also repeatedly pressuring Powell to lower interest rates.
Well, I'd love him to lower interest rates.
The chairman calling that pressure the true source of the criminal inquiry with the Federal Reserve.
Setting interest rates based on our best assessment of what will serve the public, rather than following the preferences of the president.
Now, in a joint statement, all living former Fed chairs and several Treasury secretaries warning the DOJ inquiry threatens the Federal Reserve's independence and risks hurting the U.S. economy and inflation. The White House denies President Trump sought the investigation, and the president told NBC News he would not try to pressure Powell that way, adding, quote, "What should pressure him is the fact that rates are far too high. That's the only pressure he's got." The U.S. Attorney for Washington, D.C., Jeanine Pirro, posted that her office contacted the Federal Reserve to discuss renovation cost overruns and Powell's testimony, but were ignored, necessitating the use of the legal process. And NBC News has some new reporting that, according to a person familiar with the matter, the Federal Reserve did receive 2 emails from Pirro's office in December around the holidays, and that the emails did not have a sense of urgency and did not mention anything about a criminal investigation. Another source tells NBC News Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent voiced frustration with the investigation to President Trump and believes it's a distraction. Joe and Savannah.
All right, Alice, thank you.
For more, let's bring in NBC News senior national political reporter Sahil Kapoor. Sahil, good morning. So how much leverage do Republicans have here, and how animated are they about this? Does their criticism of this investigation, could it have a real impact?
Yeah, it absolutely could have a real impact. Republicans are voicing pushback against this administration, including some who rarely criticize the president. Yes, they may want the Fed to lower interest rates, but they certainly don't think the Fed chair is a criminal. They do believe in the independence of the Fed as a pillar of the economic system. In part, by the way, many of them are wealthy. They do care about their own their own finances as well. Now, the senators have several tools at their disposal, one of which is their votes on future Fed board nominees. Take a listen to what Senator Tom Tillis, a Republican who sits on the banking committee, said about that.
He has publicly said he wasn't aware of this. So
should they drop the investigation?
I'm not going to get into that. What I'm going to do is drop any consideration for any board confirmation until it's done.
Now, Tillis sits on the Banking Committee, which has a breakdown of 13 Republicans to 11 Democrats. So he alone, if he refuses to vote for any Fed nominees, could stall every one of them from being reported out of the Banking Committee. The other tool is investigations. Take a look at Senator Lisa Murkowski from Alaska. She says, quote, if the DOJ believes an investigation into Chair Powell is warranted based on project cost overruns, which are not unusual, then Congress needs to investigate the Department of Justice, she says, end quote. Now, Powell's term, interestingly, is up in May. So the question of what happens next is really important because the president is going to have to send another Fed chair nominee to the Senate. And if this dispute continues, then President Trump might have a hard time confirming a nominee out of the Senate.
Even with Republicans in control there. All right, Sahil, let's get to some other news from Capitol Hill. Yesterday, Democratic Senator Mark Kelly of Arizona actually filed a lawsuit against Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. Hegseth is trying to censure the retired Navy captain, lower his retirement rank following that controversial video featuring Kelly and some other Democrats. In that video, they called on U.S. service members to, quote, refuse illegal orders. What is Senator Kelly arguing in this lawsuit?
Yeah, this is all in response to Secretary Hegseth accusing Senator Mark Kelly of seditious statements by encouraging members of the military not to follow illegal orders. Now, Kelly is pushing back on this very strongly, saying that in a letter, he says, quote, it appears that never in our nation's history has the executive branch imposed military sanctions on a member of Congress for engaging in disfavored political speech. That's what he says this is all about. And he argues in this lawsuit that allowing the government to punish a senator through military proceedings for his political speech erodes the separation of powers and gives the executive a power over legislators that does not exist in the Constitution. Take a look at what Senator Kelly had to say about this.
Pete Hegseth's unconstitutional crusade against me sends a chilling message to every retired member of the military. If you speak out and say something that the President and Secretary of Defense doesn't like, you will be censured.
Of course, Kelly is a prominent national figure, maybe even a future presidential candidate, and this episode has certainly raised his profile politically, guys.
Sahil, one more thing we want to ask you about. Unfortunately, it is back. It is time to talk about the potential of another government shutdown. Lawmakers are racing against the clock here to try to avoid one. They only have until January 30th to get some remaining appropriations bills through Congress. Yesterday, they made progress on funding for a couple of major government agencies, but what is the latest here?
Yeah, the deadline on that is coming up at the end of this month. Here's the situation at this moment. Only 3 out of the 12 appropriations bills have been passed through Congress. Senate moved yesterday on a vote of 80-13, an overwhelming vote to move 2 more appropriations bills. That still leaves a lot of work to do. So realistically, the goal here is for the House and the Senate to be able to agree on several more appropriations bills. They're not going to get all the other 9 done. Certainly DHS funding, which has been tied up over recent disputes over ICE in the wake of their actions in Minneapolis. Democrats are pushing back, demanding restraints that Republicans don't want to impose. That's just one example of the disputes they're going to have to resolve. At the end of the day, we're almost certainly going to have some sort of continuing resolution for at least parts of the government, and that fight has yet to play out, guys.
All right, Sahil, thanks as always.
World News Now, activists say the death toll from the Iranian government's crackdown on protests has risen to more than 600.
That is according to the U.S.-based human rights activist news agency. It also says that more than 10,000 people have been arrested. The Iranian government has not released its own numbers, and an internet blackout has made it difficult to verify reports from inside the country. It comes as President Trump announced on social media yesterday a tariff on 25% on imports from countries doing business with Iran. He offered no details on how this would be carried out.
NBC News correspondent Danielle Hamamdjian joins us now with the very latest. So, Danielle, we know the president has been weighing options to respond to this crackdown. Now he's floating tariffs. What's the reaction from China, which is Iran's largest trading partner? And do we know what else the president could be considering here?
Yeah, good morning, guys. The first thing to know when it comes to those tariffs is that Iran is a major exporter of oil and China is the main buyer of that oil. Turkey, Iraq, the United Arab Emirates and India are among its other top trading partners. The announcement was quickly criticized by China this morning in a regular news briefing in Beijing. A foreign ministry spokesperson repeated China's position that there are no winners in a tariff war, saying China will, quote, firmly safeguard its legitimate rights and and interests. Very diplomatic language there, but to put it bluntly, could this trigger retaliation from China? It is certainly possible. Now, when it comes to those other measures being considered by the U.S. president, he said the military is looking at some very strong options. Take a listen to the White House press secretary on this very issue just yesterday.
Diplomacy is always the first option for the president. He's told all of you last night that what you're hearing publicly from the Iranian regime is quite differently from the messages the administration is receiving privately. And I think the president has an interest in exploring those messages. However, with that said, the president has shown he's unafraid to use military options if and when he deems necessary.
And worth noting some particularly strong words from the German chancellor this morning, Friedrich Merz, saying he believes we are now seeing the final days and weeks of the Iranian regime. Guys?
Wow. Danielle, let's also talk about what we are seeing on the ground. We mentioned that it's difficult because of that internet blackout, but this is disturbing here for our viewers. NBC News has obtained a video showing rows of body bags at an Iranian morgue. Tell us what else we've been able to learn through this footage, the little bits that we're getting. What's happening?
Yeah, NBC was able to geolocate the video to a forensic medical center just outside the capital of Tehran. It shows dozens of body bags in black bags spread out on the ground in the open air. People are walking through the area. They can be heard wailing and crying. We're constantly working on verifying images that have filtered out. Some of those images show body bags opened for identification. In many cases, you see the bloodied limbs or faces of men in many cases. It's important to remind people, just as you said here, just how hard it is to A, get information out of Iran, B, confirm that information because the blackout is still in place. It's been more than 100 hours now. However, there is now limited telephone service in place. We've heard from NBC colleagues that some of their acquaintances have managed to hear from family members. So hopefully more information will start trickling out.
And Danielle, what we can see is Iranian state TV broadcasting these large pro-government rallies happening around the country yesterday. Tell us about that, what we are hearing, at least publicly, from Iran's leadership. I mean, do they think they can weather this latest challenge?
Well, I'll put it this way. One U.S. official with direct knowledge of events has told NBC News that protests have now spread to every Iranian province, that the crowds remain huge, and that the government appears to be on its heels. Now, some context here. There is also no clear leadership among the protesters, who are fragmented. They don't all speak with one voice. Something worth flagging, an Iranian parliamentarian this morning said the government will face even bigger protests unless they start addressing people's grievances. You guys, back to you.
All right, Danielle, thank you so much.
Well, the state of Minnesota is pushing back in court against the Trump administration's immigration crackdown efforts. City and state officials filed a federal lawsuit against multiple top Trump officials on Monday, claiming that the mass deployment of immigration agents to the state was unconstitutional. This comes as violent clashes continue between immigration officers and protesters across Minneapolis. NBC News correspondent Maggie Vespa is on the ground there with more on this. Maggie, good morning.
Hey, good morning. Protests definitely escalating here in Minneapolis. Case in point, this chaotic scene in the middle of a neighborhood yesterday. We saw pepper spray, tear gas, flashbangs, all of it, as federal officers tried to disperse neighbors and protesters who had just swarmed within minutes. Witnesses told us it started when those officers rear-ended a car. And this morning, the driver, Christian Molina, speaking out to NBC News, saying those officers had been following him and rear-ended him, then asked if he was in the country legally. The father of four, who says he's a U.S. citizen, telling us he was never arrested, never detained, but he was grateful for his neighbors coming out. We are out to DHS for a response to Molina's account, and so far we haven't heard back. Meanwhile, here in Minneapolis, the city and state now suing the Trump administration over this influx of officers, saying it's, quote, spreading terror and chaos, and of course highlighting last week's fatal shooting of Renee Good. This morning, the White House is firing back, calling that lawsuit a pathetic stunt and touting arrests made by federal officers here on the ground of undocumented residents, what they say, some with violent criminal records, a.k.a. all signs point to this conflict not going anywhere. Back to you.
Maggie, thank you.
The Supreme Court is set to hear oral arguments today over a host of state laws that ban transgender athletes from taking part in women's and girls' sports.
Two athletes, one from Idaho and the other from West Virginia, argued that the laws violate their civil rights by discriminating against them based on gender. Now, both states have defended their laws, saying Congress intended to allow divisions in sports based on sex assigned at birth, not personal gender identity. Both athletes won lower court injunctions that allowed them to continue to compete.
For more on this, we're joined now by NBC News senior Supreme Court reporter Lawrence Hurley. Lawrence, good to have you with us. So the justices are going to have to decide whether these state bans violate Title IX of the Civil Rights Act and then also the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment of the Constitution. Walk us through it here. What are the biggest issues that are at stake here?
Yeah, I mean, this is an issue, as I'm sure you're aware, that's been kind of trickling up for a while now. And it seemed at one point that the momentum was in favor of transgender rights in general. But obviously, with recent political changes and the election of President Donald Trump, who's very outspoken against transgender rights, it started to turn in the opposite direction. And of course, you have a Supreme Court that has a 6-3 conservative majority that just last year upheld state bans on gender-affirming care for transgender teens, which is not a good omen for the transgender athletes going into this case. But on the other hand, as you mentioned, this involves Title IX, that bans discrimination in education. And the Supreme Court in a 2020 case involving Title VII, which is the federal law that bans discrimination in employment, actually ruled in favor of transgender rights by saying that that law does cover both gender identity and sexual orientation. So going into this case, the big question is which of those cases kind of looms largest for the conservative majority? Will any of the conservative justices who were in the majority in that 2020 ruling feel the same way about Title IX as they did about Title VII? Or will it be more like the gender-affirming care case? So that's going to be what we'll be looking at in the oral arguments today.
Lawrence, the American Civil Liberties Union is one of the organizations representing the student athletes. What are their key arguments?
Yeah, so they're basically saying that this is obviously, for them, a simple case of discrimination, right? That this is, these are women and girls who identify as women and girls who want to participate in girls or women's sports. They're not talking about, you know, the Olympics or the NCAA. Those organizations are already kind of shifting their rules against transgender athletes. They're talking more about high school and kind of one of the students here is a college student, although she didn't actually make the teams that she sought to get into. And then there are issues also bubbling beneath about whether transgender girls actually have the kind of physical advantages that the states claim they do, especially when they've transitioned extremely young, as one of the plaintiffs in this case did, where she never actually went through male puberty at all. And they say there are some factual issues that suggest that the state couldn't or shouldn't be able to ban her from participating in high school sports.
Lawrence, there's potentially a lot at stake here. I mean, right now, more than 24 states have laws on the books that limit or ban transgender women from competing in women's sports. It's also, we know, been a big part of President Trump's policy. He's used executive orders and other Department of Education enforcement efforts to just try and restrict transgender participation in school sports. So how are those states that have these bans on the books in the Trump administration, what's their argument here?
Yeah, I mean, the stakes are pretty big here, right? Because although you could look at it as just being about sports, it's actually, if the court touches upon this Title IX question and rules one way or another, it could have a big impact on all kinds of other issues that have been coming up as well, including this ongoing debate about restroom access, which we've seen in the news as well in recent years. So, and the states, you know, they're just arguing that this is not a form of discrimination at all. They're saying, you know, it's legal to separate genders in sports, and transgender women have this what they perceive to be a advantage, physical advantage from their gender assigned at birth. So that's the kind of what they're going to be pushing in this case. And one of the issues is whether the justices will see that as more like the gender-affirming care case, or whether they see it more as the employment discrimination case.
All right, Lawrence, more to come later today. Thank you.
Well, yet another avalanche turned deadly out west, claiming the life of a third person in just the last week. Authorities say a snowmobiler was killed after being buried under 2 feet of snow when an avalanche was triggered on the slopes in Wyoming over the weekend. It comes after 2 other snowmobilers were killed in Washington state late last week. New videos show several of these harrowing scenes caught on camera. Now, the rising threat of avalanches, like the one that we're showing you in Colorado, has been fed by a series of powerful snowstorms. The National Avalanche Center advises snow enthusiasts to check weather and avalanche forecasts before heading out.
Speaking of weather, we're expecting another day of some unusually warm temperatures from coast to coast this morning.
Angie Lassman's here with your Morning News Now weather. Hi, Angie. Good morning.
Hi, guys. Good morning. And those avalanches, of course, can be exacerbated by these warmer than normal temperatures. And you can see across the west and really extending all the way out to the east, we've got temperatures running warmer than they should be for this time of year. We're almost 30 degrees above that mark of where we typically see temperatures for this period of the year. 66 degrees is what you're going to get in St. Louis today. We've got 50s in Chicago, mid-50s across parts of the northern plains. Minneapolis checks in later today at 43 degrees. And even as far south as Dallas and Little Rock, we're hanging out into those mid to upper 60s. By tomorrow, we'll start to see some of us kind of get back to more typical kinds of temperatures. So Sioux Falls, Kansas City, Oklahoma City, right where you should be. Chicago around there as well with 30 degrees. Still hanging on to that warmth across parts of the Northeast and New England. 49 degrees for your high in New York City tomorrow. And then here comes those chilly temperatures. We'll start to see them really drop and the bottom drop out really as we get into the end of the work week. So Detroit on Thursday, 22 degrees is going to be your high temperature, a big swing from where we are now to then. And that Arctic air will settle in for Minneapolis as well. We go from the mid 30s on Thursday to just 10 degrees for your high on Saturday, needing all those layers yet again. And even New York City kind of flirting with those 30s for the end of the work week, but jumping back up to those 40s by the time Saturday rolls around. Now, across the south, temperatures are actually cooler than normal, so we are getting a bit of a chill for our friends in Atlanta. We know this means that we're bundling up. 33 degrees in Atlanta. We've got those low 30s across parts of the panhandle of Florida, so we're running below average. So a kind of a different kind of setup. The middle of the country quite warm, the southeast on the cool side of things, and even tomorrow afternoon we'll still see that southern chill kind of settling in with 50s and 60s. And we're gearing up for our next winter storm. You can see not a whole lot of winter alerts out there, but we do have a couple of some snow showers and some rain in the picture, and that's mainly moving across the Great Lakes right now. But look what happens here as we get through the day today and even into tomorrow. We'll start to see some of that low pressure kind of dip out of Canada and bring us the potential for some rain and some snow, especially for tomorrow. That heavy lake effect snow will develop, and then we could see some of that across the Appalachians, and we'll be keeping a close eye on it as we get through the middle of our upcoming work week.
I love that one map. It's like Rhinelander. That's it. Just one little city in Wisconsin.
Don't worry, there will be more winter alerts.
There's more coming. All right, thanks, Andy.
Thank you.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.